What's up everyone, welcome to the video. We are here breaking down the Toyota Owners 400 at Richmond Raceway on Sunday, April 2nd around 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And we are going short track racing. I love short flat tracks. They tend to be the more projectable racetrack types on the series. Problem is, qualifying and practice just got rained out, so we are missing some pretty big data points heading into the weekend. So we're going to be relying on some of the stuff we've seen this year and how fast guys were at Phoenix for the most part. But nonetheless, I'm still excited for the race. I know Richmond is not the most exciting track in the world, but I love high tire wear tracks. Just adds a whole new element to the race. So still looking forward to it. But anyway, this is your first time here. What's up? My name is Pennell. I break down NASCAR DFS each and every single week on this channel. You can also find me live on Sunday mornings, breaking down the entire slate, answering any questions you guys may end up having, playing around 11 a.m. Eastern once again. So come in, say hi. I'd be more than happy to see you. And one more thing, if you guys do enjoy today's free content, if you can do me a favor, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Being nice, being mean, I don't really care either way, but I'd love to hear from you. All right, so getting into the strategy section of this video, with no qualifying in practice, usually at short tracks, we just play the guys who are fast in practice, play the guys that were fast in qualifying, because we usually have a good chunk of lap data, and we basically know who's going to be fast. Unfortunately, this week we lost the luxury of having that, so maybe it's not going to be as projectable as I thought heading into the weekend. But I do think a lot of drivers that were fast at Phoenix using the short track aero package are the only race we have in the sample size besides the road course. So the guys that were fast in Phoenix, I feel like there's going to be a lot of translation to that because we haven't been able to see really anything on the track this week. So the guys that unloaded fast at Phoenix or fast on the track at Phoenix, probably going to be fast once again. And usually we do see the same kind of drivers up front, the short tracks anyway. So guys like William Byron, Kyle Larson, although I know he's not typically a short track guy, but he was so good at Phoenix, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell. You know, those kind of guys, we'll probably see them towards the front once again. And we have 400 laps this week. I had to do the quick math, but that's what, around 300 dominator points. So yeah, we're going to need dominators in our lineup this weekend. Now, there is a couple names that do offer some place differential, like a Christopher Bell sorting mid-pack. So just be careful with some of the place differential plays. Obviously, we don't know if they're slow or not, because a lot of times, you know, they're just slow cars in the back, and that's why they're in the back. But since the qualifying order is based off the lineup formula, there's going to be some faster cars starting in the rear of the field that should be able to make their way towards the front. And also, Richmond, super high tire wear. Their tires are going to fall off a lot. So looking at drivers that are good at conserving their tires, Kevin Harvick being one, probably going to see them rise to the top near the end of the race. And also, if you're looking for comparable tracks to Richmond, obviously New Hampshire I think is pretty close. Yeah, Phoenix as well. You can also throw in Gateway and Martinsville, though Martinsville is a bit of a unique track. So I think Phoenix and New Hampshire are probably your best bets. And then Gateway, also another short track that they added last year. All right, so moving on to the driver-by-driver breakdown portion here, I have to mention a couple things first. So first off, if you want to join the best NASCAR DFS community out there, links down below in the description or the pinned comment for that. Tons of content over there. We got a couple hundred people. We're more than happy to have you in the Discord. There's access to all the projections, the model, simulations, scores, ownership, optimizer, a bunch more stuff, all the data you'd ever need, color coded nice and neat. We got predictive data over here, not just historical predictive, which is going to help you the most in contests each and every single week. So if you want to check it out, links down below, like I said, or in the pinned comment. I am covering baseball every single day in a similar fashion, so if you do play other sports, I got you covered over there. All right, so let's just get into it here, and we'll start with the most expensive driver on both sites, William Byron, 11,000 bucks on DraftKings, 14K. Over on FanDuel, starting in third, the odds on favorite to win this race tied with Kevin Harvick, and deservedly so. The cheap days of William Byron seem to be long gone, which sucks. I think last time we had a short flat track, we got Byron in the low 9K range. Might have even been in the upper 8K range, I don't remember. But he was way too cheap. He dominated. He won. And that could very well happen once again. Now, unfortunately, we're not looking at any practice data this week because we just don't have it. But if we're looking at the top five, we have Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman on the front row. Two solid cars there. I don't think they're going to be faster than William Byron, but we will see. We have Ross Chastain, who's not exactly the greatest of short flat tracks, but did lead like 80 laps early on in the last Richmond race. Then faded back a little bit. Then we also have Tyler Reddick, who showed some speed at Phoenix. So some pretty good cars in the top five, although I think just from everything we've seen so far this year, William Byron should be the best and fastest car inside that top five. So if I had to guess who's going to lead the most laps early on, or really in this race, I would say William Byron's a pretty good candidate for it. He's actually pretty good at the higher tire wear tracks, and we saw what he did at Phoenix. So I think he can definitely hit some laps early on. Although I know he's got his teammate Alex Bowman right in front of him, so we'll see how aggressive he is on the jump of the race, because we saw him pass Kyle Larson, his teammate at Phoenix early on, but you can't just really dive bomb down that low like you can at Phoenix here at Richmond, because there's some limited space. But I do think William Byron can get them, so if I had to pick a lap leader early on, he would be my favorite, but everyone does have a decent shot of leading some laps early on. The one thing I will mention is that there is going to be a competition caution. I don't know when that's going to be yet. I would assume around lap 25 or lap 30. So even if he doesn't get the lead early on and someone else jumps out, like say Kyle Busch or Alex Bowman set sail, we're going to get jumbled back up, because these guys are going to have to pit. If they stay out, they're going to be on old tires at Richmond, and that is not a good strategy to be on. They'll just fall straight back. So we'll have to see how pit stops go, but really whoever has the best pit stop after the competition caution, that's probably going to be your stage 1 dominator, and they'll definitely be in a pretty good position to be optimal. So we'll have to see who it's going to be, but William Byron's definitely been cooking on all cylinders this year, whether it's been on the track or on pit road. So I do like him a lot, and definitely a candidate to do some damage, and led over 100 laps at the Richmond race last year. And as you can see, dark shades of green, we're looking at the 2022 Richmond races, which are 2 obviously. Then we have the Phoenix race from this season, which is a 3-race sample size. And then we have all the short flat tracks and the next gen car for the similar track history. But William Byron checks all the boxes here, so he should have a very fast car. Dropping down to Kevin Harvick, $10,800, 13.5 over on Vandal. He's starting in 10th, and once again, the cheap days of Kevin Harvick are over. I believe last week on FanDuel, he was $6,800. Now he's double the price, but I get it. He's really good at Richmond. I actually bet on Kevin Harvick to win earlier in the week at plus 700. That was on FanDuel. I think he's down to 600, but over on DraftKings, he's at 550, which I love the odds over there. But he's my pick to win as of right now. He is just so good at conserving his tires. He's going to be that guy in stage 3 where maybe he's sitting around 6th to 10th all day, but you're just going to see him slowly creep towards the front. Kind of like we saw at Phoenix. I know Phoenix doesn't have the tire wear that Richmond does, but, Kevin Harvick is just staying in position all day. Then in stage 3, he comes alive, takes the lead, was going to win that race until the late caution, I believe, is because of Harrison Burton. But if you look at this 3-race sample size, no one's averaging more fantasy points than Kevin Harvick. He has a 2.7 average finish. He won a Richmond race last year. He's finished in the top 5 in each and every single race that we were looking at. Some good dominator points. So yeah, Kevin Harvick, he's my pick to win currently. Now my projections have William Byron just edging him out, but they're 1-2 in my model, and they're 1-2 in, I guess, DraftKings and FanDuel models and on the sports book. So I guess we're all in line here, but I love Kevin Harvick. And for cash games, it's kind of tempting to use him over William Byron if you're going to spend up, just because you get the 7 extra spots. And I wouldn't say Byron's an absolute lock to lead the laps early on. And Kevin Harvick gets you that extra PD, which could make him a little bit safer. But I love Harvick at short flat tracks, especially high tire wear tracks, so he checks all the boxes for me. I love him this weekend, and his pit crew has been good for the past couple of seasons. Then we have Kyle Larson, $10,600 on DraftKings. He is starting in 9th, and I would say in these rankings, we'll have to see how the projections go. I've not yet ran my sims, have not yet ran ownership or things like that, so we'll see where Kyle Larson adds up. He is not the best short flat track guy, but he's had so much speed this year. He's really, honestly, man, arguably the best car, him or William Byron. I know the finishes have not been there completely for Kyle Larson, but a lot of that can be just added up to bad luck or just like cautions, but screw him out of a win. But if we look at the average running position for these 3-race sample size that we're looking at, 6.1, which is really only behind Denny Hamlin at 5.9. Like, he has been there. He has the 2nd most dominator points. So he's definitely a threat for me. I prefer Kevin Harvick over Kyle Larson just because it's Richmond, and I think Kevin Harvick sets up a little bit better here. But it's hard to argue against the Hendrick cars, and we know Larson's going to have speed, so he's definitely going to be my player pool, especially as for a dominator. Then we have Christopher Bell, $10,300. He's starting in 21st. I love the price over on FanDuel at $11,500. Short flat tracks are Christopher Bell's bread and butter. I mean, he has several good finishes here at Richmond. Obviously, you can see dark shades of green across the board. He is going to be a contender in this race. Now, it's not like he's starting mid-pack because he's slow. It's just the way the lineup formula set up. I believe he spun a couple of times at Coda last week, which is going to hurt the starting spot this weekend. But I think Christopher Bell's an excellent play and someone I will certainly be heavily on. And he's also pretty fast at Phoenix as well. Denny Hamlin, $10,100. He's starting at 11th. Another guy that's pretty good at just conserving his tires, similar to Kevin Harvick. I prefer Christopher Bell just because he starts about double the spots further back, so he has some extra safety there. But the price is a little bit lower than a guy like Kyle Larson, William Byron, Kevin Harvick, so he's going to be a little bit easier to get to. We know he's great at Richmond. Very, very good history here. Plus, this is home track, so I'll definitely be having some Denny Hamlin exposure. I know he wasn't as good at Phoenix as some of these other guys, and obviously the issue with Ross Chastain hurt the finish, but he ran pretty well for the majority of the day. So Hamlin should be a contender once again. And I know I kind of talked up every single expensive driver so far, but They're expensive for a reason this week, and I just like them all, so I'm going to have some exposure. It's not one of those weeks where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be all in William Byron, 60%. All these other guys are going to be underweight on. I think since we don't have practice or qualifying this week, I'm going to have to spread out my exposure a little bit up top, just because I don't think it makes too much sense to take a super strong stance on any of these guys. Obviously, I do have my favorites. I think Kevin Harvick might be the guy I'm the heaviest on. But since we kind of have limited data this week, I think we have to be just a little bit careful with our exposures and going too heavy on certain drivers. All right, dropping down to the 9K range, we have Martin Truex Jr., $9,900. He's running that auto owner's paint scheme this week, which everyone loves to talk about. I can't personally make decisions based off of that, but I guess he does have more speed in this car over the long course of his career. So whatever it may be, he tends to be fast in this paint scheme. But I just don't think he's going to be faster than some of these guys like Denny Hamlin, Bell, Larson, Harvick, Byron. We will see. We know he's good at the short, flat tracks. Look at the serious sample size we're looking at, just not quite as good as some of these other guys. Like, I think he'll run well, but at his price point, he's going to have to dominate, and I'm just not really sure he's going to get up front. Maybe if he can get some good pit stops and work his way towards there and, you know, make a jump on a restart, that's possible. But I'm just not sure he's going to get up front and dominate. I'll have exposure, sure, in tournaments, but we'll have to see how he stacks up in projections. But I don't think it's going to be as good as some of these other drivers. Like, I'd prefer Denny Hamlin over Truex personally. Then we have Kyle Busch, $9,700. He's starting in second. If you were playing Kyle Busch, you were assuming he leads stage one, basically. He doesn't have to lead all of stage one, but you're assuming he kind of beats out Alex Bowman on the jump because he's going to have William Byron right down his throat, and some of these other fast cars are going to get there at some point. But we know Kyle Busch is good at Richmond. Now, his long history there is with the JGR car and Toyota, which they tend to run pretty well at Richmond. So now that he's with RCR, we'll see how that goes. Although we've seen Austin Dillon have some pretty solid runs here, but Tyler Reddick not really so much in the past couple of seasons. But I just think Kyle Busch should be on our radar. I mean, we know he's one of the most talented drivers. He should have a fast car. And $9,700, if he gets up front, you're going to want him in your lineup. So I don't think we can really fade Kyle Busch. But I think personally, William Byron will be the best car inside the top five. But we will see. But from what we've seen this year, it would make sense to say William Byron will be faster, but he's also about $1,000 some more expensive. Joey Logano, $9,400. He's starting in 18th. Just didn't really see much at Phoenix to make me in love with him here at Richmond, although I know this is a good track for him. Did win a race here last year and dominated. Problem is, man, Phoenix, it was just bad. He was fast in qualifying, fast in practice. He was fast at the beginning of the race, and then he just ends up fading straight back with Ryan Blaney. I know they kind of finished well. Ryan Blaney kind of got lucky with the late caution where he ended up finishing second, but I'm not going to be in love with the Penske cars, I don't think. The price points are nice. I will say that. And they're both good at short, flat tracks. But what we've seen so far this year, which is kind of what we can go off of, he hasn't really shown me too much to where I'm going to be super excited about rostering Joey Logano. Yes, I know the place differential is there, so I think projection systems might like him a bit. But I don't think we're going to see him up front in this race. Alex Bowman, $9,200. He's starting on the pole. If you're playing Bowman, you basically need him to lead until the competition caution, and then you either have to have him hold the lead and lead stage one, or kind of hang around the top three all day, picking up fast laps here and there. So I don't think he's the safest play in the world because he's got some really fast cars beside him, and it's not like he's a guarantee to lead until the competition caution or stage one because you have Kyle Busch, one of the best drivers in NASCAR, right there. He's a clean racer though, so I don't think he's going to screw up Alex Bowman's day right off the rip. But then you have William Byron right behind him. We know he's going to have a ton of speed, and we know Bowman's not the greatest at the short, flat tracks. Although in the serious sample size we're looking at, he does have 2 top 10s, just no lap sled, and the fast laps are there, but not as big as some of the other drivers. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with Bowman. I'm not sure he's going to be a cash game play yet. I'll have to see how the projections stack up, but I'll probably have somewhat limited exposure to Alex Bowman. He's not a fade by any means because we know how good Hendrick's been this year. So if he leads stage one, I mean, you're probably going to be dead without him. So I think you have to play some Bowman, but I'm just not sure he's going to be a cash game play. Then Tyler Reddick at $9,000. He's starting in 5th. He had some pretty good speed at Phoenix, put together a pretty good race. Just not typically the best driver at the short, flat tracks. I feel like I might be a bit underweight on Tyler Reddick here starting in 5th, just because I think he's only going to lose spots. I just don't see him getting up front and dominating, and at that price point, that's kind of what you're going to need at that price. And I think Bowman will probably end up being projected a little bit better for me just because he's got an easier path to dominating. Because if Reddick finishes 8th, that's a good day in real life, but for DFS purposes, that's not going to get it done unless he gets a large chunk of fast laps. Dropping out of the 8K range, we have Ryan Blaney, $8,800, who is really cheap this week. A very similar play to Joey Logano. We know how good Ryan Blaney is at short, flat tracks, although Richmond hasn't really been his best track in the world, although he did get 2 top 10s last year, so he has been getting better. I don't think he's the worst play. He did finish second at Phoenix. Now, he wasn't that fast during the race. He did fade back a little bit, but ended up getting stronger as the race goes on. So if I had to pick between Blaney and Joey Logano, I'm probably going to pick Blaney just because he's about $1,000, $600 cheaper. And he swept the top 10 at Richmond last year, had a top 5 at Phoenix this season. And obviously all the numbers do stack up being pretty good. And he has been a dominator in the past. I don't really see him dominating this race. But if he can contend for a top 10, pick up some fast laps here and there, that's not a bad day at that price point. Then we have Ross Chastain at $8,700. He's cheap, starting in 4th, led some laps at Richmond last year. Not really the best short flat track driver. If you're looking at this 3-race sample size, average finish at 20.3, running position's a lot better. Has had some bad luck here and there. Obviously, he got screwed at Phoenix by Denny Hamlin. If we extend this to the 9-race sample size for Ross Chastain, it definitely looks a little bit better there. Average finish at 10th, running position right on par with that. 4 top 5, 6 top 10s. So at the price point, I think you have to play some Chastain just because the upside's there. And if he ends up leading laps early on in stage 1 or stage 2, I mean, you're going to want him in your lineups at $8,700. So I got to play him just because of the price point. Like, he's only $300 more than Chris Buescher. Like, it's really cheap this week. And speaking of Buescher, starting in 7th, him and Brad Keselowski, we can just kind of group them together. I think they're going to run somewhat similar by the end of the day. The problem is Keselowski starts about 20 spots further back. So he's got some ground to make up. So Keselowski's definitely going to project better. And he's going to have some ownership. Although I don't mind the pivot to Chris Buescher in tournaments. I mean, short flat track's not the easiest to pass at. And let's say Keselowski gets stuck in like 18th all day and Chris Buescher's borderline top 5 car at the end of the day. Buescher's going to be the one I want in tournaments, and the ownership's going to be a lot lower. But as you can see, both guys ran pretty well at these tracks last year. Richmond, in the Phoenix race this year, 3 top 15s for Chris Buescher, 3 top 20s for Brad Keselowski. So Buescher is your tournament play. Brad Keselowski, well, I don't think he's a cash game lock by any means. At $8,300, he should be a top 15 contender, and he is going to project pretty well for me. Daniel Suarez, $8,100. He's starting in 20th. Like, I would rather roster Brad Keselowski over Daniel Suarez. Suarez is really not the best short flat track guy in the world, as you can see, dating back to just the beginning of next gen. 9-race sample size, average running position of 18.9. Finish just about similar. Just have 2 top 10s, 5 top 20s, but I think I can trust Brad Keselowski just a little bit more. I'm not saying he's a terrible play, but I would trust BK a little bit more. And honestly, I'd probably rather roster Josh Berry over Daniel Suarez at $7,900. He's starting in 30th. I don't have any data on here just because he wasn't showing up in the data set that I was looking at, but he did finish 10th at Phoenix. We know he's in the 9 car, which has ran very well short flat tracks in the past. We know Hendrick's going to have a ton of speed. So Josh Berry starting in 30th. If he can contend for a top 15, even a top 20, that's fine starting in 30th. So I don't hate Berry, although I just worry where he's starting, because if he's not really fast at the very beginning, it takes him a little bit because he didn't have any practice time, then he might get stuck a lap down. So that's the only concern. But I do think he's a fine play. Chase Briscoe is $700. He's starting in 19th. I think he could be kind of sneaky here as a top 15, maybe knocking on the door as a top 10 guy. I think this track type suits him well. And if you're looking at the 3 sample size I'm looking at, average finish at 13.7, running position inside the top 15, a top 10, and 2 top 15. So Chase Briscoe, I don't hate him this week. Eric Almirola, another Stewart-Haas car guy, $7,600. And get ready once again. It could be another chalky week of Eric Almirola starting in the very back, and it just tends to never work out. The guy wrecks every single week. It's just what happens. Although at some point it's going to stop happening. And he's had a couple of good runs when he's wrecked out. Like, it's not like he's just been completely slow, just riding around in the back, and then he ends up wrecking. Like, he's had some speed. It just, the bad luck keeps biting Eric Almirola. I'm not sure if he's getting punished for not retiring from last season, but we'll see. But he's pretty good at the short flat tracks. He's starting in 33rd. I wish he was in the 6K range. He got bumped up this week, probably because he is better at the short flat tracks. But I don't hate him starting in 33rd. I'll have to see how the projections stack up value-wise, because there's some other guys with similar place differential upside with probably somewhat similar finishing position potential. So I'm not saying he's like a lock in cash games or anything, but if all goes well for Almirola and he doesn't wreck, he should be a top 20 contender. And we've seen him be a top 10 guy at short flat tracks before. We saw him win in New Hampshire a couple of seasons ago, although I'm not expecting that in the slightest here, starting in 33rd. Bud Wallace, $7,500. He's starting in 28th. He's had some bad luck the past couple of weeks as well. Well, I'm not sure I'd call it bad luck. I guess he ran out of talent last week, destroying Cal Larson. Then he wrecked out early at Atlanta. And I'm not really a huge guy on Bud Wallace at the short flat tracks, although 2 top 15s in this data set that we're looking at. I believe he finished P14 at Phoenix earlier in the season where he started 19th. So I don't hate him starting in 28th. And we know Toyota typically runs pretty well at this track, so hopefully he just doesn't suck. And if he can be a top 20 guy, $7,500, it's not bad for where he's starting. Ty Gibbs, $7,300, starting in 14th. Probably not going to get to him. I just feel like he's a lock for a penalty every single week, and this is not one of those tracks where he won a penalty yet. He had about 40 last week, and it worked out because they kept wrecking and having issues when he's serving his penalties, so it just ends up working out where he had a good finish last week at Coda. But man, the guy has made so many mistakes so far this year, which I get it. I mean, he's super young, and it's his first season going full-time Cup, so the mistakes are going to be there. Sure, the 2 race sample size we're looking at for Ty Gibbs, I mean, average finish of 32nd, running position of 23.2. Just going to be hard to trust him here, starting in 14th. There's just other guys I'd rather get to a place differential upside because he's probably going to finish close to them. So I don't really see wanting to take the risk with Ty Gibbs here. It's not like we've seen him fast in practice. This is where he's starting. I mean, it's just because he finished well last week at Coda and obviously at Atlanta, which are 2 tracks you kind of had to get a little bit lucky at, unless you were a front runner. Austin Dillon, $7,200. Like, I'd much rather play Austin Dillon. He's starting in 27th, and he's actually pretty freaking good at Richmond. He's been a top 15, top 20 machine at this track. He's actually not that bad at the high tire bar tracks either. Average finish of 14th in this 3-race sample size we're looking at. 39 DraftKings points per race in the top 20 in each and every single one. And while he's not the best short flat track driver out there since last year, 16.8 average finish. Average rank position inside the top 20 and 6 top 20s in a 9-race sample size. So he's running at 27th at this price point. I think Dillon's a fine play, and also adding Kyle Busch to the team is obviously going to bring everyone up. And we know Kyle Busch is really good at Richmond, so if he can learn some tips from him, that would even help him even more, even though he's already good at Richmond. AJ Allmendinger, $7,000. He's starting in 25th. Kind of indifferent on Dinger. Not sure I'm going to be in love with him. I actually do like him at the short tracks typically, but 2-race sample size we're looking at, I mean, 25th in average running position, 1 top 20, 23.5 average finish, and a 2-race sample size. It's okay, but I'd just rather get to Austin Dillon personally. I'd rather get to probably a couple other guys below him, so I'm not huge on the Dinger. At $7,000, maybe if he was cheaper. And even Bub Wallace is only a couple $100 more than him, so yeah, probably not going to get too much. AJ Austin Cindric, $6,800. He's starting in 6th. I can only see him moving back. I think he was optimal in one of the Richmond races last year, but he did offer a lot of place differential, and I just don't really see him running up front this time, so I'll probably pass on Cindric. Eric Jones, $6,600. He's starting in 22nd. Don't really see myself having too much interest here. He was 20th in green flag speed at Phoenix, and obviously there's the numbers in the series races that we're looking at have not really been there, so probably passing on Eric Jones. I think I'd rather play Ryan Preece here, starting in 32nd. I know we don't really have much of a data set to work with, but did finish 12th at Phoenix earlier in the season. Was he the 12th fastest car? No, but starting all the way back in 32nd, I don't think he's a bad play at this price point. He's probably going to gain spots unless he wrecks out early on. Chandler Smith at $6,100. He is starting dead last. He's with Colleague this week in the 13 car. He's got some talent. I definitely don't think he's going to be the last car. So if you're just looking for some place differential, I think Chandler Smith is fine. Michael McDowell, 15, starting a bit high for me. Typically a guy where you're kind of hoping he's just running top 20 at these track types, so more than likely just going to move back. So not super excited about Gregson. The problem is, though, I don't think the plays down here are super amazing. Like, you have Haley starting in 29th, Burton in 26th, maybe, but even then, I'm not really too excited about it. So we're going to have to not be too picky with some of these cheap plays this week. So McDowell, we can completely cross him off just because this list here is gross. We have Noah Gragson kicking off the 5K range here. He's starting in 23rd. Again, just one of those guys where I think he's only going to lose you spots, so can't really get too excited here. Ricky Stenhouse, $5,700. He's starting in 8th. Another guy that, once again, I hate to keep saying it, but just probably going to lose spots. So I don't think I can have too much interest in Stenhouse. Although I will say these guys are track position. It can help them stay in the lead lap, after it draws out for a little bit, because these are long green flag rounds. Guys like Justin Haley, they're probably not going to have the speed to keep up to be in the lead lap for too long. Meanwhile, a guy like Stenhouse, sure, maybe he's in 15th, but at least he's on the lead lap and he at least has the chance to knock on the door for like a top 12, top 10 at the end if there happens to be a late caution or something like that. So you can't completely write those guys off just because of that. I know Haley's going to project better than Stenhouse, but that's something you just have to keep in mind. So speaking of Haley, he's starting in 29th. Probably just not going to have a ton of speed. I mean, average finish of 25th, average rank position of 25th. Probably going to gain you a few spots, and he's dirt cheap. He's going to project well. It wouldn't surprise me if he's like the cash cheap option down here, but I don't think he's going to be blazing fast and run top 15 by any means. Corey LaJoie, kind of similar to Stenhouse, where that track position might just help him maintain spots. I mean, we've seen Corey LaJoie just finish well just about each and every single week this year. Again, don't look at these rankings. I know they're like dead last for LaJoie. These are not the updated rankings for this week. They'll be updated on Patreon later on this evening. But I actually don't hate LaJoie here. Can he project well starting in 16th? More than likely not in most projection systems. But what he's been doing this year, he just kind of holds his spot all day. And if he holds his spot, like if he finishes 18th at below $5,500, we'll take that all day. If a guy like Haley's stuck in 26 all day and Stenhouse loses, 10 spots and finishes 18th, LaJoie might not be the worst play down here. You have Harrison Burton at $5,300. He's starting in 26. Honestly, he just sucks. He'll probably finish around there. So, it's fine. We can't get too picky down here because there's just not any good options. But I might just rather play LaJoie over Harrison Burton, to be honest. Todd Gillen starting in 13th. He was my hero and savior last week. I pivoted off of Eric Almirola, Todd Gillen, and a lot of my tournament lineups. Ended up working out very well, got in the top 10, so thank you, Todd Gillen, but that'll probably be the end of your run with me, as I don't think I'm going to play you starting in 13th this week. Anthony Alfredo, fast pasta, pasta boy, burnt pasta, whatever you want to call him. A couple of seasons ago, we always had Alfredo, and he wrecked or messed something up every single week, and I'm sure he's going to ruin lineups once again. He's in BJ McLeod's car in the 78. That car has no speed, so I'd expect Alfredo to probably be in the back of the field for pretty much all day. JJ Yaley, not playing you. Cody Ware, no thank you. Ty Dillon, if you were looking for a dirt cheap option this week, he is the cheapest driver. He has an issue each and every single week, but if he could just stay clean for 1 week, I don't think he's going to be the absolute worst car in the field. He's starting in 36. I know he's with Spire. You can't really trust the equipment, but Ty Dillon is not the worst driver in the field. So at $4,700, if that allows you to fit in a guy like Byron and Harvick together, and you have to pick between either dropping off one of those two for like a Corey LaJoie or just plugging in Ty Dillon, I'd probably just plug Ty Dillon and hope for the best and hope those denominator points up top can make up for it. With that being said, guys, that's all I got for you this week. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, make sure you leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. Hope to see you all in the live stream on Sunday at 11, and if you want to check out the extra content, links down below in the description or the pinned comment. And check out Prize Picks and Underdog using promo code CPEN for an instant deposit match bonus up to $100. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow.